Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Praeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So it's October 29th, 2021, and we are reading from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 10, text 33. And we will start by reading the Sanskrit words one by one. Etat Bhagavata
Bhagavata
Rupam
Upam
Ulam
Tulam
Te
Te
Vyahritam
Pyaritam
Maya
Maya
Mahi
Mahi
Adibi
Adibi Cha
Avaranahi
Avaranai
Astabihi
Astabi
Vahi
Vahi
Navritam
Avitam
Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Ulam Te Vyahritam Maya
Stulam Te Vyaritam Maya
Mahi Adibischa Varaneir
Maya Dibis Chavarane
Astabir Bahir Avritam
Astabir Bahir Avritam
Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Ulam Te Vyahritam Maya
Stulam Te Vyaritam Maya
Mahyadibischa Varaneir
Maya Dibis Chavarane
Astabir Bahir Avritam
Astabir Bahir Avritam Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Etat Bhagavato Rupam
Stulam Te Vyaritam Maya
Ulam Te Vyahritam Maya
Maya Dibis Chavarane
Mahyadibischa Varaneir
Astabir Bahir Avritam
Astabir Bahir Avritam. Etat
Etat
Always
Orvis
Bhagavata
Bhagavata
of the personality of Godhead.
of the personality of Godhead.
Rupam
Upam
form.
form.
Stulam
Stulam
gross.
gross.
Te
Te
unto you.
unto you.
Yahritam
Yaritam
explained.
explained.
Maya
Maya
by me.
by me.
Mahi
Mahi
planets.
the planets.
Adibi
Adibi
and so on.
and so on.
Yeah.
Sha
Unlimitedly.
unlimitedly.
Avarane
Avaranai
by coverings.
by coverings.
Astabi
Astabi
by 8.
by 8.
Bahi
Bahi
external.
external.
Avritam
Avitam
covered.
covered.
Translation. Thus, by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms, such as those of planets, which were explained to you by me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4, The separated material energy of the personality of Godhead is covered by 8 kinds of material coverings: earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All these are emanations from the personality of Godhead as his external energy. These coverings are just like the covering of clouds for the sun. The cloud is a creation of the sun, yet it actually covers the eyes so that one cannot see the sun. The sun cannot be covered by the clouds. The cloud can, at most, extend a few hundreds of miles in the sky, but the sun is far greater than millions of miles. So a 100-mile covering is not competent to cover millions of miles. Therefore, one of the various energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot, of course, cover the Lord, but these coverings are created by him to cover the eyes of the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature. Actually, the conditioned souls are covered by the illusory creative cloud of matter. And the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to their eyes. Because they have no eyes in transcendental vision, and because they cannot see the personality of Godhead, they therefore deny the existence of the Lord and the transcendental form of the Lord. The covering of the gigantic material feature is accepted by such men with a poor fund of knowledge, and how this is so explained in the following verse. Omainana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Tasketa Desha Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are reading from the second canto, chapter 10, which is the last chapter of this second canto, text 33, which reads, Etad bhagavato rupam stulam te vyahritam maya mahyadivischa ramir astabir bahir avritam. Translation. Thus by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms such as those of planets, which were explained to you by me. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada relates to the Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 4, Bhumir apo nalo vayu, kamano buddhir evacha, ahankara ityame, vina prakritri astada. These 8 separated material energies of the personality of Godhead. There is in the text the word ashtabhihi, that means by 8. So a few minutes ago we were singing Sri Damodarashtakam. So Ashtakam, the word 8 is in the word also. So we were reciting eight shlokas to the Lord Damodara. Or as we sing in the morning, Shri Guru Astakam, also 8. Shri Guru Samsara Davana Navalidha Loka, 8 shlokas also. So here we have 8 separated material energies of Krishna, and 5 of those are gross, and 3 of those are subtle. And if we are engaged in those gross and subtle, material forms, we do not actually get to see the personality of Godhead, because he is hidden, but he is not hidden, he is hidden to our eyes, to our vision. Because as Prabhupada was explaining in the purport, the material elements, gross and subtle, they act as a cloud, as a covering to our vision. So although the sun shines all over the universe, we actually cannot see the sun, because just above our head is the cloud. But compared to the sun and the sunshine, the cloud is actually very small, and the living entity is even smaller. And if we are engaged in the material forms, in the material enjoyment, it's like building, being on the beach and trying to build castles from the sand, like children usually engage in. Like I remember myself playing on the shore of the sea, building some so-called buildings from the sand, from the very nice sand that is close to the waves. And like sooner or later, a bigger wave came and all was simply gone. So if we are engaged in the separated material energies of Krishna, we can try to build something. At the same time, sooner or later, some wave will come and it will be all gone. And it's quite interesting because usually, mainly children engaged in such activities on the beach. Well, sometimes parents also, but parents have the understanding that there is no long-term benefit of such building of the sand castle. And it's even more interesting because as people see, like building like a castle from sand, there is no long-term use. We struggle to actually realize that anything we try to build in this world will be destroyed by time. So we can see when the wave comes in like 5 minutes or a few hours or a day, we can see that the castle will be destroyed. But when it's in like 20 years, 30 years, suddenly it's kind of beyond our intelligence. But it should not be beyond our intelligence. We should understand that anything we create from those separated energies of Krishna, with the earth, water, fire, air, sky, with our mind, with our intelligence, with our using our false ego, everything will be destroyed in due course of time. So it takes just a little bit, seemingly a little bit of intelligence to progress to such an understanding. And I watched the recent video led by Nadira Govinda Prabhu, and you were speaking about the super soul. That was the text 30. And you've talked that the Vishnu who is lying on the ocean is the original super soul, and from the Mahavishnu, the universes are created, and then Garbhodakashayi Vishnu enters the universe, and from the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu there is the lotus from which Brahma is born, and the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu lies also on the ocean that fills the bottom half of the universe, and then there is the third Vishnu, the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the localized super soul in every living entity, and also has his own planet in this universe. But he's still one Kshirodakashayi Vishnu in the universe who is present with all the living entities. Yes. So then that's how the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands. Like the first expansion of Krishna is Balaram. Today I struggled with the speech. We shall see how it goes. So Balaram is the first expansion. The next expansion is Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So that's the first quadruple expansion. Then from Sankarshan expands Narayana. And from him, the second quadruple expansion, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from the second Sankarshan comes the Mahavishnu. So that's kind of probably simplified way Krishna expands to create the universe. And then he's present everywhere in the universe, but he's hidden to our side if we don't want to see. And like usually we don't want to see him. That's kind of the reason why we are here in the universe, so we can run our own project without Krishna. Yes, but we still have a chance by using the separated energies of Krishna for Krishna, because the source is him. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Idam hi pumsa tapasah shrutasya svistasya suktasya cha buddhi datayo avishutyo arta kavibir nirupito yat utama shloka gunanu varnanam. So we have a chance to use whatever we have in the service of Krishna. So if I can, if I'm let's say a scientist, I can use science, I can use my understanding, my research skills, and so on to prove or to show that the source is Krishna, that the source is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I can engage my skills, anything I have, so that me and also others get more understanding of who the cause of all causes, the source of everything really is. And the beginning might be okay, showing that the source is actually who is he. It's a person. It's not some, I don't know, degraded point of something or some mixture of things. And as I'm engaged in my work, like my investing project, I sometimes could come across interesting people, and one of the most successful investors of the 20th century was John Templeton. And John Templeton, he was a Christian. And what he actually did with the money he earned from investing, he started a Templeton Prize. And the Templeton Prize he offered a large sum of money to the people who would show some research, some progress towards understanding God. And one of the winners of the Templeton Prize is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And I would like to read a small part of Alexander Solzhenitsyn speech. It's from 1983, and Solzhenitsyn, he did vast research on how why the Soviet Union, Russia failed to satisfy people, or even less than satisfied, totally ruined the social and political system there. And he spoke when he was getting this Templeton Prize. Since then, I have spent well nigh 50 years working on the history of our revolution. In the process, I have read hundreds of books, collected hundreds of personal testimonies, and have already contributed 8 volumes of my own toward the effort of clearing away the rubble left by that upheaval. But if I were asked today to formulate as concisely as possible the main cause of the ruinous revolution that swallowed up some 60 million of our people, I could not put it more accurately than to repeat: men have forgotten God. That's why all this has happened. So, like his lifelong research ended by concluding that all these horrible things that were happening in Russia were caused by simple thing that people have forgotten God, and the system cannot be fixed without remembrance of God, because if we do not remember God, our original source, the source of all of us, like the one thing that we all have in common, then there will never be prosperity, understanding, and friendship, like all these things that people long for. And I actually did not discover this speech of Solzhenitsyn. It was actually sent to me by one of my clients, and we spent like a nice exchange with each other, talking about God. So even though my project does not relate directly to Krishna consciousness, sometimes like write to me, because I did a video on John Templeton, and the man was like, wow, that video was like great, because the man himself was Christian. So and he saw all these principles that he wanted to get, and so that was an inspiring exchange. And like it's interesting with investing, like sometimes people try to like invest in like socially, environmentally responsible businesses, like businesses, enterprises that like do not destroy the nature, or do not kill, or yeah, and like that. And like one can do that, but it will be like still full of faults, because still if I like find a business like a green business that is not engaging in producing meat, that is not doing so much harm to the environment, still each business is doing some harm to the environment. And like still, even though the business might not be engaged in slaughtering, like people employed there will very likely be still eating meat. So there is nothing really clean. And the way I think is like maybe feasible when one engages, like when his work is like investing in businesses or creating businesses, the chance is like at least to use the resources that are earned for propagation of the Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, and then it can be purified. And of course, like if I can invest in just like some conscious businesses, why not? But still, always it will be like less bad, more good. Like I will be always sort of on the mental plane, thinking what's better, what's worse. Like I might not invest in a company that drills oil, but I still use oil in my car, so I still need a company. So I get into those entanglements because I'm still on the mental platform. Yeah, and I read like during summer a book on Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, you probably know at least the name. He's like the most famous investor of 20th century. He used to be the most wealthy man for some time, and I read the book, and it's like 900 pages. It's about his life, and it's like visible. Like, of course, it's filtered by my reading of the book and by the one who wrote the book. But my understanding is like he was accumulating wealth because of the fear he had inside, like he wanted to protect himself by the money. So he earned a lot of money, let's say in a materially smart way. He did it for a long time, and then he became famous. But the source, the motivation of the enterprise was fear. Like there is said in Bhagavatam, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatir akinchana sarve gunair tatra samasate suraha harava bhaktasya kuto mahat gunan manoratena asati davato bahi. So unless one is a devotee, he has no good qualities, because everything what seems like a good quality, like wealth, let's say wealth is a good quality. It's based on fear. It's some let's say a strategy for protecting the gross body, or for protecting the false ego. It's usually about the false ego. So like the source of so-called wealth, fame, even a renunciation in the material world, in this world, unless one is a devotee, unless one does it for Krishna, to please Krishna, it's all based on some mask, on some play, like usually fear or never mind. It's probably not important according to the modes of the material nature. Anyhow, yes, yeah, and like as human beings, we are very special in seeking joy, like in seeking enjoyment, and like we always try to find like some new source of our enjoyment. Like when I compare myself to our dog Bumi, so the dog Bumi, she's like fine with a wooden stick, and she is happy. And the next day, I can still give her a wooden stick, and she will be happy. And okay, she might have like 3 wooden sticks in the end, but like that's the source of her happiness in the end. And for the years to come, I think the wooden sticks will still be fine. But for me, like I want to enjoy this, and I stop, then I'm frustrated, so I want to enjoy something else. Like today in the morning, I bought a new car for myself. So yes, so so yeah, like I was enjoying the previous car. Now I'm kind of bored, it's boring. A not very good car, so I'm buying a different car, and I will be trying to enjoy the new car until, which will probably be rather soon, it becomes boring, and I will want a bigger car, different brand, different features, and blah blah blah. And I can just keep trying to squeeze the juice from the matter, from the separated energy of Krishna. And like it can continue lifetime after lifetime, because there is no limit to the material varieties, because the material varieties are a reflection of the unlimited varieties in the spiritual world. But I'm trying to approach the purchase of the vehicle, of the car, that I'm not buying it for myself. I'm buying it for my child, for the child inside that longs for the fancy car. It's not for myself, but for the fancy child. And I'm like willing to like spend the resources and so on for the child. And then it's kind of clear. It might be important because then the child will be peaceful, at least for some time, and I will have more space, maybe, we shall see, to engage in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, and like we can talk about the child, or we can talk about the heart, or we can talk about the subtle body. It's kind of all the same. Yes. Yeah, and like also like if I need to choose a car, which I kind of need soon anyway, like why should I choose a bad car if I can choose a good one? So that's a good reason also. And like still like, okay, I could play the mask of like that I don't need a fancy car, it's like a waste of money. I will be just, here in the temple, in the house, not really getting my things for myself. But this like is also based in fear, because I have the fear of losing the resources I have. So if I buy a car, I get rid of substantial resources on my bank account. So if I don't buy the car, like I'm still like feeding into the fear inside, I'm controlled by the fear. So it's also a stretch for me to spend a large amount of money. And I'm hopeful they may be in 5, 10, 20, 30 years, I will be able, willing, and joyful to spend the money more directly for Krishna consciousness. Like I could probably feed like, I could buy probably like 100 100,000 lunch for the school children in India instead of buying the car. But anyhow, I bought the car. So maybe in the future, I will be joyful in spending the money in a different way. And the car actually has many good features. It has, I discovered, it has like these pre-programmed buttons. So I can just go in the car and actually press the button and it can start playing the morning songs. I can press button number 2 and it can play Prabhupada's classes from Bhagavad Gita and like that. So there might be some transcendental fun connected with that. Okay, and like that comes to our maybe like previous discussion when I held the class, like, and we discussed like when to satisfy our desire and when not to satisfy our desire. And like, okay, like in this example, I decided to like satisfy the desire of my inner child, the small child, to have a fancy car, so that the subtle body is more peaceful and like balanced. And like, okay, but I might have many other desires, and sometimes it might not be beneficial to try to like satisfy the desire, to like go for it. Yes, and like my points related to that, like to that choice, to that distinction, is like, okay, like what will help me to long-term progress in Krishna consciousness? Because as long as we are conditioned, we require some balance on the path. So like, even though it is said like we should give up all desires, that's nice. I could do it, but I'm probably not that sincere. And also the material modes that I'm engrossed in play their part. So it might be smarter to like progress steadily in a balanced way, like in a balanced way of like enjoyment and renunciation for Krishna, so that I don't burn myself out. And yes, and like it might be helpful to see where we are at and to progress from that. So if I have like, if I'm very disturbed, I cannot even like chant or something, there is probably something going on that I can look at. Yes, so that's the principle of balance. And then there are maybe like things that I don't want to go for, like the four regulative principles. Well, I could go for them, but then it depends on my goal, what I really want, because I think there is a high chance of cheating myself when I will be telling to myself, okay, like I have a desire for sex, so I should have sex. I should like satisfy my inner child in that way. But these four principles, my understanding is that are given to us by Prabhupada and by previous spiritual masters. There is a high chance that I will cheat myself, so that I will become dependent on satisfying that desire. So it also requires some distinctions, some ability to make distinctions. And of course, I can cheat myself also with the car. It's the same principle. Later, I can be telling myself, okay, this was not the correct car. Maybe this car would be good for the inner child or whatever. So I think in these cases, it's very beneficial to like discuss it with other sincere souls or souls that are engaged on the devotional path. So I can get feedback, I can get guidance, and that's the system what Prabhupada gave us. So I can discuss either with my wife, that's been a great help, support, or the senior devotees or other devotees. So we learn to make the distinctions about what's the balance for us and what's like self-cheating and what might be like pushing the beach ball, pretending to be more renounced than I'm really willing to be. Okay, so that was the part with the car. I think I've covered all the points. That was the most important part of the class. So last week, interestingly, I met with like the most famous investor in the Czech Republic, because he gave some class, and I was listening to the recording of the class, and then I wrote him a message in which I praised him. So he invited me for lunch. So either we can like create trust by the understanding, empathic dialogue, listening, or we can just praise people. That also works, depending on the goal. Anyhow, we've met for a lunch, and it was boring. But there was one interesting thing. Like he said that like people should care about finance, about their personal finance, and that people do. Most people do not really care about their finance, that they do not have savings and like that. And I responded like, why? Because I know people that do not have large savings and are still like satisfied with their life and do not like require finances on their bank account. Yeah, like they don't need the money. If they lose, like, I don't know, house, they do not need money and like to continue to be happy. And he was like not getting the point at all. Like, like it was like out of the box. And like, as we discussed in this verse, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead is like outside of the material box. It's a totally different dimension that we look through to the world. So yeah, so I had this meeting, and last point, like it also relates to the process of learning, to the education that's given to children, that was given to us, to me, that is given these days to every child, and like the education that is being given and received is basically about the building the castles of the sand. It's like about the transforming. It's about the transformation of the 8 material elements, or 5 elements, or 8 elements into a form that's still from the 8 material things. Yeah, and there is like no response to the question of like why should I like do this? Why should I transform the material stuff from this way to that way? Either if someone is building a house, so he's engaged in transforming the material elements, of someone else might be engaged in doing finance, filling out some forms. Like why? That's because that's also a transformation of the material energy. And as long as like we are engaged in just transformation without higher purpose, at least playing Prabhupada's songs in the new car, well, it's an old car, but it's a good one. Unless the matter is engaged for spiritual purpose, because matter is originally spirit, there is no point, because it will be destroyed like a castle on the shore. And okay, last thing, like from time to time, I get to see online like so-called research that like sex is good for health. Like the man, you know, should have sex in order to like that his health improves. And it's an interesting research because I think that's a great example of a wrong sample of people, because they did do this research with who? Like with people who are like deep into the material modes of nature. And like, of course, there, like I can guess that like those people that want sex and don't have sex are frustrated. So their health, their life satisfaction decreases because they are frustrated and depressed. But they did not take like pure devotees in the sample, in the research. I can guess like that there was about 0 of pure devotees who refrain from sex and are happy. So I think, yeah. So that's like how we are getting misleaded. And of course, if we engage in that, then we mislead others. So it's vice versa. Yeah, because it's like the research based on the people who are like deep into the modes of the nature, like according to the Vedas, not even on the level of human beings. So we kind of research these people and get some findings and then try to say, oh, this is how should you behave, act, and then some people act according to that, or the other people, they do something that's 180 degrees opposite, which is like usually on the same level, because the spiritual point is not there. Like if I connect with the higher bliss, with the vibration, with the spiritual vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then I get better enjoyment than the sex enjoyment. So that's an idea for someone for a research. In the research, there could be mentioned sex in the title, so it would be a white red research. So okay, so I will read the verse. Canto 2 text, chapter 10 text 33. Etat bhagavato rupam stulam te vyahritam maya mahyadibhischa varamer astabir bahir avritam. Thus, by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms, such as those of planets, which were explained to you by me. Hare Krishna, thank you very much for your presence, for your listening, and now we have time if you want to share your sharings or ask questions. Haribo. Yes, Mother Malini.
Hi, Krishna. I really appreciated your class, your research, your example, and the humor in your class too. Congratulations on buying your second car, fancy car.
Thanks, Jai. Yes.
I'm eager to hear more about it. I was curious about the research you quoted from the person who got the Templeton, win the scholarship. I was wondering because, it's easy for, like the old propaganda against Bolshevik or communism. It's easy to go into communism and, nobody was happy because communism is such a natural propensity for human being to be in community, to be the equality of all. It's just so many natural propensities that are in human being, desired by human being, to have fairness, to have justice, so the Marxism is such, to me, it's really a beautiful philosophical approach to life that's natural to the desire of the living entities, of the human being. And of course, we know it went rancid and bitter and all that. And then, of course, we are going to prove that something, so people have studied it. And then I really appreciate that this person, I don't remember his name is too complicated for me to even pronounce, that he came to the point that what was missing was God. Because communism, in a sense, had nothing wrong as a system, but because there was no God in the center, people were miserable. And I'm wondering if there is people who are doing the same study about materialism and capitalism. Because if we really look around, capitalism doesn't work. It hasn't worked to make people happy. Like I go to Walmart very rarely, but once in a while, and people grab, because it's so big and there is everything there. And they look so frustrated and miserable. So capitalism hasn't worked for the same reason we know. But it will be interesting to see, is there people who also make research? Or is it just because we want to put down the communism, and then there is so many research about communism, and then capitalism haven't worked better than communism, really not, because God is not in the center. So that was something I was coming during your class. Maybe you want to comment on that. I have other thing I want to share, but
yes.
Something on that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like maybe like it's showing that the principles are more important than the external structure, because I think like one can have like any external structure, be it like Marxism, communism, or the other systems, any system, but if the principle is God, it will work. the system, it will be different, the form will be different, but it will work. But if one takes the external structure, for example, of the communism, it's like Prabhupada said in class yesterday, I was listening, like still like the within the structure, everyone should be equal, but it doesn't work. Like there must be some head, someone who decides you will do this, you will do that, and like that, and then the kind of it becomes like the same system as before, because God is not in the center.
Mm. Yes, thank you. And yeah, I was thinking like about the car, you know, like, okay, there is a psychological process around, you know, like the frustration of the inner child or whatever, like we want to call a part of us that needs something. And then I appreciated the direction you took is like surrender means to accept what's favorable for devotional service. Is it favorable for me? Meeting myself where I am at on a map, because so much of what Srila Prabhupada gives us is to find ourselves where we are on a map, and then, you know the destination. And in between the destination and where I am at, there's so many fine line and fine decision to stay on a path. And some of the decisions include like, oh yes, for me, it's favorable to get that fancy car because it will be more conducive. And of course, and you pointed out the danger of cheating, because we have all the propensity to cheat. And the first person we cheat is ourselves. You know, self-deception is really where we turn to be expert. And I was thinking, yeah, there is those guidelines, you know, to accept what's favorable, to reject what's not favorable, and to really think in those terms. Okay, like buying a car, is it favorable for me where I am at with my level of sincerity or not? Am I in self-deception? And if yes, then let me look at those self-deception. And that doesn't mean that I don't buy the car, but there is all exploration that's possible with the guidelines given by Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I appreciated that too. And when you spoke about that person you met, that super investor in Czech Republic, I was thinking of the previous verse that yesterday Mother Bhakti that I gave a class on, and she said 8 times Prabhupada used intelligence. And to really see that, yeah, like without the intelligence being developed, then a person doesn't have the ability to understand how it is possible for someone to not have their finance together, or even any financial security and being happy, because without that intelligence means kind of thinking outside of the box, the ability to discriminate, and that person doesn't have that ability because he doesn't have the sharpened intelligence through, you know, spiritual understanding or even spiritual asking question, coming to a place. And I'm appreciating that in your boring meeting with him, you kind of started to open that door for him to think about it.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah, and yeah, like because like we also spoke, and he actually shared like that he's like investing and trying to gather resources like money. It's also like based on fear, like the fear of loss. Yeah, so I think that's the background of like many people who do that, like myself included. I'm in pain when I was experiencing pain when I was paying for the car, even though the sum of the for the car was not that big actually. But anyway, like, yes. And then if I do not look at the source, okay, the source is fear, and I can like have a chance to look at the fear, then I like the so-called good qualities are based on the grunges or the fears of the things that like eat ourselves inside anyhow, anyway, and I need to get more and more, and nothing is enough. Yes.
Like greed.
Yes, greed. Yeah, like greed.
Fear.
Yeah.
And then I have a question, a philosophical question, because I read this verse many times, and each time is something that's blocked for me in it and in the beginning of the purport, because it said, thus by all these external features, so the external feature of the personality of God is covered by gross forms, such as those planets, which were explained to you by me. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 7.4, the separate material energy of the personality of Godhead is covered by 8 kinds of material covering. So, like, if it was saying the internal energy, then I will say, oh, yes, that's clear. But the external energy being covered by those elements, at least my understanding is that those elements are the external energy. So where is like the separation between the external energy and those elements? That's what I would like to hear from you, if you have any understanding of it.
I don't have much, and I was looking at it maybe from a similar like perspective as you. I did not get it really, and like, yeah, the first sentence of the purport is like gives the same confusion as the translation of the verse, because the external feature of the personality of Godhead, so that's one thing, it's covered by gross forms. So it seems that there is difference between the separated material and energy and the actual coverings of the material energy. So like, yeah, I think that there are like simply like sometimes we can make only the distinction between matter and spirit, but here I think we are getting deeper. So there are distinctions between various grades of matter. Mm-hmm. So there is the external feature of the personality of God, the Virat Rupa, the universal form, and the universal form is covered by these things. So yeah, I don't really have like a clean response.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can see you also reflected on it, and it's unclear. One thing that's a possibility that I considered, and I appreciate what you said, the Virat Rupa that covered by those things, and then the planets, and then the external, because the external energy of the Lord, it's an energy of the Lord, and as such is eternal. But the manifestation of the 8 elements is temporary. And so like maybe that's why like the external energy is an external energy, because it's an energy of the Lord, it's always existing. And the manifestation of the 8 elements are not always existing. It's sometimes manifested, sometimes unmanifested.
Yes, and I like your point. Like you are making the distinctions based on the difference of qualities of those two things. Like one is the form does not last, but the thing behind it lasts.
Yeah, and it's there is one purport, and I'm not finding it in this chapter, where it seems almost that we get a sense that Krishna doesn't have a body. You know, Krishna is Krishna and his body is Krishna. However, in the sense of the Virat Rupa, it's almost like he has a material body in that form of his external energy. Like it's the super soul of the material cosmic Virat Rupa, that is a super soul, as if he's a super soul having a Virat Rupa body.
Interesting.
And then he can withdraw himself from that. You know, like Krishna, of course, doesn't have a body, and we understand that. But there is a purport here in this chapter that kind of almost indicate that when it comes to the material cosmic manifestation and the Purusha avatars, that the Purusha avatars, they are expansion of the expansion of the expansion, and that the external energy it's also an expansion, like we are Jiva soul expansion and also energy of the Lord, and that he gets the body. Anyway, that's something I've been meditating on, and I don't know where is this purport.
Okay. Yeah, like your point is okay, that there are like distinctions and there are like various grades, like especially in the like regarding to the material manifestation, like from the eternal to the material. It's like in my personal reading, I'm reading the third canto, and there Lord Kapila is explaining that one should meditate on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like piece by piece. Like he should start from the feet, then the, I don't know, the thighs, the belt, and like so on. And Prabhupada writes that in the purport, like one should meditate like that, like piece by piece, because if we take Krishna as like a whole, that's like it's basically an impersonal idea. So I'm just remembering it.
Thank you. That's why I am in Bhagavatam too. In my personal reading, I'm in a teaching of Kapila, Lord Kapila to devotee, a little bit, maybe a chapter earlier.
Okay, nice. Nice. Are there any other questions, sharing, realization, experiences, anything we've covered, like with the principles of balance, with the principles of distinctions, the qualities, the material cosmic manifestations? Okay. So thank you for your presence. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Yogesvara Prabhu. Hare Krishna. More grace to share Prabhupada.
Thank you for supporting and being here with me. Prantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Prabhupada.
Jai. I wouldn't want to miss it. Hare Krishna.